Welcome to the Books, Life, and Shenanigans podcast with your host, Amanda Bird. Hey there. On today's episode, we are talking about, you can see my notes, a handy dandy notebook. Yeah, I don't think Steve would be proud. On today's episode, we are talking about books we found it hard to get through, some basics on narcissism, and this week's Shenanigans Challenge. It's going to be a fun one, I promise. Okay, trying to make it fun. For me, it's fun. It kind of coincides with the books we found it hard to get through. So to start, the first one on my list here, I hate to say it because I absolutely adore the series itself, is Hannibal Rising. So I watched the movie before I read the book. I will admit that. The book was bad. Fucking bad. The movie, worse. Like, dude phoned it in. I think. Might have been he didn't even phone it in. Like, what? How? Like, okay, cool. So your sister was eaten by a bunch of fucking Germans during World War II because they were starving. Great. So you plotted out your revenge, Hannibal, and you ended up biting one guy's cheek off. But what you did not do was eat all of them or the rest of them or anything. Like, yeah, you killed them. Right. Fucking vengeance, right? That's how that's supposed to work. But yes and no. And then there's that whole weird having sex with his aunt thing, and I don't know, man. I don't know. When Brian Fuller, maybe I've already had too much to drink. Nope, have not. When Brian Fuller made the show and he did the Hannibal Rising bits, it was done tastefully. Like, and the aunt sex thing was glossed over, right? It wasn't in your face like it was in the book and in the movie. And it was just like this weird, what the hell am I watching kind of thing. So yeah, like that one was really hard to get through. And then, another favorite series, Dexter is Delicious. So behind me, I do have the US print versions as well as the UK print versions. The UK print version is just a skosh shorter in height, but it's a decent size thicker. So yeah, I should probably read that to see what the differences are. I will say Dexter is Delicious it was just hard to get through at times. Every book has a soggy middle. Every series has a soggy middle. In the case of Hannibal Rising, that was the fourth book in the series, right? Dexter is Delicious was book 5, I believe. And then we have book 3 of another super popular series. The book and the movie were a challenge for me to get through. Book 3 is a good one for me to put on to go to sleep for the movie. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, right? Like, the book is amazing in its own right. The movie is amazing in its own right. But then we've got the time turner, right? So lots of things are repeating and being gone over, and it's a lot of the same shit over and over and over and over. And for me personally, that was a challenge for sure. Um, yeah, super super big challenge. I I think when I was reading the whole series, it took me probably the longest to get through that, and it wasn't one of the like 500-page books. Um, it was it was difficult because you're rehashing the same shit over and over and over in the same book. Now there was a reason all of that had to happen, but also it's just a lot. And I can't imagine being, say, like a 12-year-old kid. I mean, I read this in my 30s. So I can't imagine me at 12 years old being, oh my God, this is a great book. Me at 12 probably would have hated it and maybe not even finished the series. Now, granted, at 12, I was reading Christopher Pike. Yeah, he's been around that long. Um, Christopher Pike and the R.L. Stine books that were not Goosebumps. Um, to be completely honest, I'm not even sure Goosebumps existed when I was a kid and teenager. I did, I spent a lot of time grounded. And apparently that was supposed to have been punishment, but it wasn't. Be grounded, stuck in my room, no video games, no friends, no phone, couldn't go outside, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. So what was I doing? I was reading. That wasn't punishment for me as a kid. I loved to read. So mother was kind of dumb in that aspect. And then I would go with my dad for the weekend and he'd be like, okay, what do you want to do? Well, Dad, I just read like all 6 books that I had to read. I could use some new books. So my dad would take me to the bookstore. I read a lot. I wish I still had all of those books. Um, if I still spoke to my mother, I might ask her if she still has them in a box. But that's something that doesn't happen. So I guess I'm going to have to wait for some time to find out if she still has them in her attic. Other things she may or may not still have in her attic are original VHS of Disney movies that are in the vault. Like some of them probably are not even available on Disney Plus, which is crazy, right? But yeah, books, every book's got a soggy middle. I don't care. Even mine, even my series. I've got 7 out of a plan 13. There's definitely one, maybe even 2 books that are hard for people to get through. Like for me, working on narrating them right now, books 1 and 2, it's interesting, right? Book 3 will be a lot more fun. I know book 3 is going to be a lot more fun because that was the first time I wrote a double kill instead of a single kill. And the kill methods were fun. The disposal methods were even more fun. The research on those was a whole lot of fun. But yeah, like my books all have soggy middles. They're not 100% action packed, or they're not 100%, oh my God, what's she going to do next? Or oh my God, what's she going to say next? Okay, maybe, oh my God, what's she going to say next? Because she's sassy. She's sarcastic. She's bitchy. There's nothing about Brittany Cage that's not realistic personality wise. She's already losing her mind. You can tell she's missing screws. Like those screws aren't there. They're not there. So they're not loose. They're just not there. Right. But I hope I don't have books like Hannibal Rising where people are like, oh, she phoned it in. Or maybe she didn't phone it in. She just decided, screw this, and just started clacking away and hoped everything made sense, right? Or Dexter's Delicious. That was more than a soggy middle. Mr. Lindsay, I'm sorry. It was a little more than a soggy middle. A lot of the book was soggy. And I think that was kind of like the soggy middle of the series. Totally cool, right? Prisoner of Azkaban. Again, soggy middle of the series. Now I understand, Dexter's Delicious might be someone's favorite. Hannibal Rising might be someone's favorite. I know damn well Prisoner of Azkaban is a lot of people's favorites. Mine personally is Half-Blood Prince, because we find out more about Snape. And I always kind of had this thing with Snape where I felt for the guy, right? So here we are with, the books, not necessarily the movies or the shows or whatever, the book versions that are hard to get through. So there are those. They're in every series. Hold up. Everything's backwards. I'm sorry. This behind me, Larry has bits of books that are a little difficult to get through. I don't particularly recall having a whole book in the series where it was harder for me to get through. There are other fans that will 100% disagree. They are very vocal about it, so I don't need to reiterate what their problems are. There are books in other series. Over here, this shelf here, and then this half shelf here. Those are all R.A. Salvatore Forgotten Realms. I like his work. I really do. I love the character of Drizzt. Can I think off the top of my head which books were hard for me to get through? No. But there has to be at least one. There's like 30 plus books in that series, which, by the way, I'm not finished it yet. I'm not even fully caught up. I think I'm missing now like 10 at this point. Sorry, Bob. My bad. I've got like 2 up. One of these days I'll get this right. Up here, this is my TBR shelf. It keeps growing. Bit of a problem. It keeps growing. I am sort of making a dent in it. But whatever. Philip Margolin. Perfect example. Another one. This one here. That is Murder at Black Oaks. That's on my TBR. I'm currently reading A Darkest Day, I believe it's called. And then Betrayal comes out this year. Funny, because I also have a book titled Betrayal, but it's really like 13 Reasons for Murder, Betrayal. That is book number 6. I always confuse Bad Blood and Betrayal, because they're sort of about the same things, but not really. So yeah, like Betrayal is a very common name for a book title. But as I'm saying, so Philip Margolin, I'm sure, has a book that is going to be hard for me to get through. And I think it just might be A Darkest Day, that I'm currently reading. So that is book, stand by, I have to turn around and look. 4 in the Robin, why am I blanking on her last name? Anyway, and I'm not fully caught up on the Amanda Jaffe series yet either, but getting there, but not yet. As you can see, the TBR stack is like, hey, you need to, but the point is, all series, we're not talking trilogy, we're not talking, there might be in a 4-book series. Hannibal was Red Dragon, Hannibal, Silence of the Lambs. Okay, so that was a 4-book series. Book 4 was the hard one to get through. I honestly think that specifically was a case of Thomas Harris felt like the series was done, and then between the publisher and the fans, they wanted to know, Where did Hannibal Lecter come from? What made him a cannibal? What happened in his life to make him everything he is now, right? Everybody wants to know that. So there has to be some kind of backstory somehow, somewhere. Hannibal Rising was that. It could have been better. It really could have. I don't know the circumstances around how it came about. I don't want to know. It's there. It's 20 years later? He's not going to rewrite the damn book. Just like I'm not going to rewrite something I wrote 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Now, there is a trilogy that I have that I will not be rewriting, but they will be re-edited and completely reworked. Maybe, eventually. My editor really wants to get his hands on it. I'm just not there yet. Serial killers. That's where I'm at. The dark fantasy stuff, another day. Another time, another year. And now, a word from our, not sponsor, but an ad. BartoCon LLC presents the End of Summer, a Sorting Hat celebration. Saturday, August 5th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Bartow Civic Center. A magical time to include music, professor dance-off, kids' activities, food trucks, costume contest, magic show, and many magical vendors, and many more wizarding adventures. If you wish to be a vendor or a sponsor, please contact bartocon1701 at gmail.com. And please make sure to mention the End of Summer event. God, the editing on this is going to suck. It's going to be so much fun. Hopefully this will be up by the end of the week. Okay, so on to the life part of our Books, Life, and Shenanigans podcast. So let me ask you, if somebody had mentioned to you, let's just say narcissist, 5 years ago, you'd have automatically thought it was someone with a personality disorder, because nobody really thinks or understands that it's not just a personality disorder. There are tendencies. Narcissism operates on a scale, and the top end of that scale is narcissistic personality disorder. A lot of people, actually all of us are narcissists to a degree. However, we're on the low end of that scale, right? The real people who do some damage are those who manipulate using gaslighting. They wear you down with things like word salad, gaslighting. There is Dr. Ramani. She specializes in narcissism, right? And she is fucking amazing. I am still in the recovery phase from a narcissist. But I can tell you this. You see the red flags, right? You love this person. You want to be with them. You see these red flags and you continually just knock through them. They don't exist. They are, these are all things people are warning you about. Hey, I see this. I see that. I don't like the way he speaks to you. I don't like the way she makes you feel isolated, right? It doesn't matter. Male or female, they're both capable. We're all capable of these things. For me personally, it was the manipulation. It was the gaslighting. Let me ask you something. 5, 10 years ago, shit, even yesterday, how old were you when you found out what gaslighting actually is? So I'm actually I'm gonna pull up Dr. Ramani's, she's got this page in her course. It's called Narcissism 101, and I gotta tell you, she is fucking amazing. If it wasn't for me finding her on YouTube, I never would have realized what it was that I was stuck in for. Okay, I sort of realized what I was in, and I very distinctly remember telling one of my best friends that I was the martyr. I was the one that needed to save all of these other women from his horrific treatment. Now, there was some shit that was really dramatic that had gone down when him and I first got together. And that alone should have told me, like, hey, dummy, fuck are you doing? Didn't. Absolutely didn't. And as much as a lot of people say things like, they're all the same, they're not. They're all different. They all vary on this spectrum of narcissism. The biggest thing, I think, is the lack of accountability, right? There is no accountability for anyone who's not kind of like a normal narcissist, in my opinion. And when I say normal narcissist, I mean like all of us have these weird red flags. The big thing is those of us who are like, oh, am I a narcissist? We're not. Promise you we're not. Because narcissists don't ask themselves that question. And that's a big thing that Dr. Ramani talks about. Another thing, like at least for me in the situation that I was in, lack of accountability. There is none. You are to blame for everything. And that's where the gaslighting and the manipulation comes in, right? It doesn't matter if it's something as simple as, well, I asked you to do the dishes and you didn't do them. Somehow that will become your fault that they didn't do the dishes after they agreed and you had asked them to do the dishes, right? It's your fault that they didn't do them. And if you start noticing things like that, that's a problem. It shouldn't, it's not your fault that they didn't do something, or they said they were going to do something, like you had the conversation. Hey babe, can you please do the dishes? I have to do this, this, and this. Like, I'll be working, you're off today. Can you please make sure the dishes are done? And they don't do them. You're working all day long. You may be in the house, you may be out of the house. It's gonna turn into your fault, I promise you. And this is where it all starts. You're crazy. You're misremembering. My memory is better than yours. Fun fact. Their memory is better than yours because once you have been dealing with a narcissist for so long, I don't like the terminology of victim. I don't. I was using it in regards to myself, that I was a victim, but I don't like the terminology. I'm not a victim. I'm not. They're just a piece of shit. That's the difference. I got out of it. So now I just have to heal from the trauma, right? I just don't like the terminology of victim. But they will turn things into blame shifting. Everything's your fault. Their lack of accountability is your fault. You're the reason they did or didn't do, they said or didn't say. You're not. I grew up with this, and I did not realize until about a year ago that there was a term for this, that there were other people who grew up like this. There were other people living what I was currently living. And I had a therapist say to me, "You need to join a narcissistic support group." I said, "Really?" So now that therapist and I had come a long way, but he also let me know in no uncertain terms that I was living with a narcissist. I was married to a narcissist. He also basically let me know that I grew up with a narcissistic parent, and it was all well and good until I really started to learn, right? You start to learn and you're like, well, what's wrong with me? Why do I stay with this? Here's why you stay with this. It's a fog that your brain literally experiences. Like, it's a fog. Your brain is in a fog. After all of the abuse, the words, the gaslighting, the manipulation, all of it, mental, emotional, your brain starts to try to protect itself. And that fog is one way. My brain is much, much clearer now. We did try to work things out for a while after I had asked him to leave. He's been gone 6, almost 7 months. And my stupid ass is just like, yeah, you're starting to take responsibility. It's an act. It's all an act. There are certain things that I will never say on this podcast, but I promise you, it's all an act, because they're not good at keeping it up. They're going to break one day. So they could be acting for 3 months, 6 months, a year, longer. And then it goes right back into those same patterns again that you tried to escape from in the first place. I do encourage looking up Dr. Ramani, Ramani. She's on YouTube. She's on Med Circle podcast. She's got her own narcissistic recovery course. She's absolutely amazing. She's the foremost speaker, psychologist on the topic. A lot of things stem from her research. You can look up different things on YouTube. And some of these videos are going to tell you, like, hey, all narcissists do this. It's not all of them. Some things are not that simple. Some things, yes, they all gaslight. Yes, they all manipulate, right? These are two of the core traits of narcissists. So this is something I really wanted to get into, episodically. I don't want the whole podcast to be about narcissism, because how many are out there, right? I'm not the only voice talking about it. And I am the last person to claim that I'm an expert. I'm just relaying what I went through. It wasn't pretty. He didn't physically abuse me. There's no smear campaign against me, which is pretty fucking hilarious. When you're married to someone that you are terrified to say anything to, because you know they're going to judge you, or they're going to tell you, you got to stop making it about you. Hold the phone. You were literally just talking about me specifically, and then you're going to tell me to stop making it about me? What? So there's a lot of things where you're just like, but it's not all narcissists. There are certain things that are not all narcissists. There are certain things where this narcissist specifically, I brought up to him 6 months into our relationship, quit fucking gaslighting me. And that went on for about 2 weeks before he finally turned around and asked me, I don't understand. You keep using this term. What does it mean? So I explained it to him. Gone. Gone. He stopped. And he genuinely felt bad. At least for a while. Had I chosen to try to call it out again? I don't know. But I didn't try. I tried everything else I could. I wore myself clear the fuck out. No, baby. That's not how this works. And if you're listening or watching and you feel like this is something you're dealing with, I encourage you, start looking up Dr. Ramani, start listening to her videos, her podcasts, all of it. Do the research, because you could very well be with a narcissist, and that's some shit to try to work out of. It's difficult. It's challenging. It's an emotional roller coaster that I would never wish on anyone. Ever. It's a fucking nightmare sometimes. So yeah. That's that. I'm actually going to see, I know she's on Teachable. Sorry, this whole dual screen thing's kind of messing with me. Okay, so her course on Teachable is taking yourself back, healing from narcissistic and antagonistic relationships. Now, she's got a lot of information just on Teachable. Like, you can just search her name, Dr. Ramani, Teachable, and this is where you're going to find it. She's amazing. And as I said, if it wasn't for her and for my therapist saying you should join a narcissism support group, yeah, I had started researching it because a friend of mine had said to me, I think he's a narcissist. And then more friends started saying, I think he's a narcissist. I think he's a narcissist. I think he's a narcissist. And the more I learned, the more I realized I, as an empath, attract narcissistic tendencies. So there are things like boundaries that I fucking suck at, I'm not gonna lie, that I need to learn how to put in place. And I need to respect them myself, because if I don't respect them myself, nobody else is going to, right? So if I don't respect myself enough, no one else is going to respect me either. I was treated constantly with disrespect. And it was always behind closed doors. It was never out in public. Never. Okay, somewhat out in public. Behind closed doors, totally different ballgame. Narcissistic rage is another one that everybody's like, yeah, narcissistic rage is a thing. It is a thing. It, again, varies in degree per person, per narcissist, we'll say. That's a fucking fun thing to deal with too, let me tell you. And there's other things that come into play where they push you to the point where you react, and you react so negatively that you're automatically the bad guy again. It doesn't matter that you were fighting about something that they did and said. They push you and push you and push you. You react just a tiny bit over the top. You're the bad guy. You know what? I make a fucking awesome villain. So please, continue to tell people about the villain I am in our story. I will wear my Maleficent horns with fucking pride. Absolutely. What else am I going to do? Hell, Angelina Jolie showed that Maleficent isn't what you think she is. Granted, I might want to turn into a dragon just to eat your narcissistic ass. But karma's going to fuck you over harder than I ever could. So there's that. That definitely went kind of all over the place. But yeah, let's call that your brief rundown on what narcissism is. There's so much more to it. Oh, there's so much more to it. But that's where we're going to stop for now with that specific topic. And it is time for another ad, if you will. See my shirt? I like serial killers, cats, and wine, and maybe 3 people. Like it? Want to know where to get your own? Head over to shop.amandabird.net. Click on apparel. You will see this shirt as well as a few others. If you're looking for the 13 Reasons for Murder book series, that is also where you will find those. Or you can find those at any of your favorite book retailers. If you cannot find it at those retailers, feel free to request it, especially at places like Barnes & Noble or Books A Million, because they do have the ability to order it for you. But yeah, ordering for me is a little bit better because it's a little bit more support for me instead of the retailers themselves. There are certain big box stores that like to... I'm not going to go there. Buying direct is better support for us authors. You're helping us not have to depend on retailers, just on you, the reader. So yeah, shop.amandabird.net. And shirts, you can even get this design on a canvas wrap. Use it as desk or wall art. A couple other fun things there too. There are some notepads related to the 13 Reasons for Murder series, as well as some other super fun things. So check that out. Okay, now we go on to the shenanigans of the very first episode of the Books, Life, and Shenanigans podcast. Now, shenanigans are fun. Every week there will be some. Some weeks there will be kind of like a challenge, which is what I'm about to give you now. Other weeks there will be just me kind of reading out the challenge responses. So this week's challenge is going to be in relation to what we talked about earlier with the books. I want you to send me a book or books that you have had a hard time getting through, right? So it can't be Hannibal Rising. It can't be Prisoner of Azkaban. It can't be Dexter is Delicious. Sorry, guys. I already named those 3. Give me more. If they're ones I haven't read, maybe I'll add them to my TBR list, as long as they are something kind of in the wheelhouse of what I read. What I read is pretty broad. I will read fantasy, urban fantasy, dark fantasy. Not a big fan of romance or erotica, except if it's Honey Cummings and her erotica that doesn't take itself seriously. I will totally read that, but none of those are hard to get through because they're fucking hilarious. So yeah, not a big fan of romance or erotica. If there are hard sex scenes, kind of a pass for me, because that's not what I like to read. I like to read things that that kind of stuff just doesn't interest me. Also, like hard sci-fi or hard military sci-fi, more things that just don't interest me. But send me what you got. amanda.bird.books@gmail.com, or if you're on YouTube, post them below. And commenting on Substack, post it on there. and I will go through these and pick some of my favorites. Hopefully some of these are ones that, I'm totally down to read, or maybe they're even, honestly, ideally, they're ones I've already read, right? So I can say, yeah, I totally agree with you, or no, I don't agree with you, and here's why. Everybody's entitled to their opinions, but I think this will be a fun challenge because I think a lot of us are going to agree with, yeah, that was a difficult one to get through, or that one totally sucked out my soul trying to read it. Meanwhile, I'm over here going, that one sucked out my soul to fucking edit. Okay, they all suck out my soul, and I need sugar to edit. Swedish fish. So, yeah. Email me or comment amanda.bird.books@gmail.com and tell me what book you thought was a challenge to get through, or what books. Ideally in a series, not a series of standalones, a connected series and world. All right. Thanks so much for joining me for the inaugural episode of Books, Life, and Shenanigans podcast. And I hope you keep following.
This has been the Books, Life, and Shenanigans podcast with Amanda Bird. Song credit, audionautics.com. Intro action, AUDIONAUTIX.com. And if you'd like to support this podcast, head over to substack.com/@Books, Life, and Shenanigans.